Welcome to my history class. Today we are going to start our new chapter, The Age of Industrialization. In this chapter, we will look at this history by focusing the first on Britain, the first industrial nation, and then we are going to study about India, where the pattern of industrial changes was conditioned by the colonial rule. From the beginning of this chapter, we saw two paintings or two pictures. One picture in 1900, a popular music publisher, E.T. Paul, produced a music book and had a picture on the cover page announcing the dawn of the century. As you can see from the illustration, at the center of the picture is a goddess-like figure, the angel of progress bearing the flag of the new century. She gently perched on the wheel with wings, symbolizing time. What symbolize? Symbolizing time. Her flight is taking her into the future. Floating about behind her are the sign of progress like railway, camera, machines, printing press and factory. The second picture, it shows the two magicians. The one of that top in Aladdin from the Orient who built a beautiful palace with his magical lamp. We are studied about that. We are knowing the story of Aladdin. The ones at the bottom in the modern mechanic who with the modern tools waves a new magic. Like this person is able to build bridges, ship, towers and high-rise buildings. So like Aladdin, it's shown as a representing the East and the past. The mechanic stands for the West and modernity. Let's begin the chapter with the topic before the Industrial Revolution. History of industrialization started with the establishment of first factories, but this idea is somehow biased. Why? Because even if before factories began to appear in England and Europe, these two areas are prominent where it started, the industrialization started here. There was a large scale industrial production for the international market. Only they are doing the work for the international market. This was not depend on factories. So many historians refers to this phase as a proto-industrialization. So what is the definition of proto-industrialization? Even before factories began to be set up in England and Europe, there was a large-scale industrial production for an international market. This was not based on factories. Rather, this was based on cottage industries. So this period was referred to as a proto-industrialization by the historians. So after the expansion of world trade, a very fast trade during the 17th and 18th century, the producers in the town failed to produce and required quantity. So merchants from the town of Europe began moving off the countryside, supplying money to peasants and artisans to persuading them to produce an international market. Why it is happen? Merchants offer advance for producing clothes for them at a time when open field were disappearing and the commons were being enclosed. Income from proto-industrial production supplemented and their shrinking income from cultivation. So here, the one question why these merchants, those who are working in the town area, interested to turn to the villages? The reasons was the trade guilds. There were powerful trade and craft guilds in urban areas. These associations controlled the competition and prices and prevented entry of the new players in the market. That's a big reason where these merchants are interested to turn to the villages. Association of producers that trained the craft people, maintained control over the production, regulated competition and prices, and restricted the entry of new people into the trade. These all are the reasons. That's why these merchants, they were turned to the villages. So when these merchants turned to the villages, the artisans of the countryside were willing to work for the merchants. There are some reasons also behind it. Open fields and camel were disappearing. The cottagers and poor peasant had to now look the alternative source of income. Because on that time everything is going to shrink. So these cottagers, these poor people don't have any alternative source of income. When the merchants offered advance, the peasants' households eagerly agreed because they got the alternative source of income. This income supplemented their shrinking income from cultivation. So these all are the reasons where the artisans or the countryside peoples, they were agreed to do the work with the merchants. So with this work, the new type of relationship developed in between of the town and the countryside. The merchants were based in town and the artisans who worked for them were based in the countryside. A merchant clothier first purchased wool from the wool staplers and supplied it to the spinners. The thread that was spun was taken in different stages of the production to weavers, fuller, and then a dyer. So the finishing was done in London before it was sold in the international market. So gradually London came to be known as a finishing center. So before that, they need the support of some peoples, those who did that entire work. So this proto-industrial system was thus a part of network of commercial exchanges. The usual feature of proto-industrial system was that the goods were produced by the artisans within their family farms, not in factories. So at each stage of production, 20 to 25 workers were involved with, which meant that each clothier was controlling hundreds of artisans or workers. So it make a relationship between of town and the countryside. The countryside peoples, they are getting interest to do the work to the merchants, but because of that they are getting the alternative source of income. So thank you so much. I return back with my new topics. Learn the chapter, learn these topics carefully. Thank you. Thank you so much.